It gets you every time. What does everybody ask? But what's your favorite way to fish bass? It literally has the worst hookup percentage out of any other technique that you can use, but it doesn't matter, right? Because when they blow out of the water, you can't help but smile.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer Podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing in the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your host, Master Captain Angie Scott.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Woman Angler and Adventurer Podcast. I'm your host, Angie Scott, and it's kind of special. I'm up here in Minnesota doing this interview, sitting on the deck of my parents' house, the same house I grew up in, only house I ever knew in North Branch, Minnesota. Just kind of thinking about how blessed I am, because not a whole lot of people have the opportunity at the age that I'm at, which is 44, to go back to their childhood home and still have both parents living at home, and it's the same house, and slept in my bedroom last night. And it's kind of cool. But my guest today is also in Minnesota, so I'm excited to introduce y'all to Mandy Uhrich. Welcome to the podcast.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, Angie.
Yeah, my pleasure. So you're further north than I am. You're up in Brainerd. Is it chilly up there this morning?
No, it's gorgeous here.
Gorgeous.
It is absolutely gorgeous. I think it's probably like 66 or 67, which if I could live in that temperature year round, things would be great. Unfortunately, we are going to see those temps peak probably about 80 today, but I definitely was out early this morning on the same deal on my patio, enjoying the nice pre-fall crisp air.
Yep. Nice. And yeah, the humidity, I heard that it's been kind of humid and then it's kind of let up this week. So it's going to be a nice reprieve in that regards for everybody. So, so what all do you get into up there in Brainerd?
What don't I get into?
I know, right? You got a little bit of everything up there.
Yeah, we're super blessed where we live geographically. I think within like 30 miles of the Brainerd Lakes area, we have like 236 managed lakes, multiple rivers. Fishing's phenomenal. You know, you can fish for just about any species here, from, largemouth, smallmouth, walleye, muskie, pike, panfish, perch, catfish. I mean, we've got it all here. You can, head three hours north up to Rainy River and go fish sturgeon, nice. But hunting's really good here. Anything grouse. If you go a little bit south, Little Falls, you can pick up some pheasants, but whitetail hunting, bear hunting. We've kind of got it all here. Wow.
So I've got a little campaign going on my show right now to help promote the South Dakota tourism, the pheasant hunting, and trying to get more women involved in that sport. Have you ever been over to South Dakota for any pheasant hunting?
Oh, yes, I have. I'm actually originally from North Dakota.
Okay.
And I know it might sound sacrilegious not to hunt in my own state, but I've taken many, many adventures to South Dakota for pheasant hunting, and it's quite spectacular.
Awesome. That's what I hear. And I love I talked about this not too long ago on the show, but the whole aspect of bird hunting. I'm a big dog person, so I just love the whole dog part of it and the relationship that hunters have with their bird dogs. It's pretty awesome to watch.
I can't deny that. I'm a dog lover. Right now I currently have 3, but I grew up with hunting dogs, running labs or German short hairs for the hunting purpose for upland and duck. So yeah, there's definitely a very, very special bond. And if you're lucky enough to have one, let alone 2 really, really good hunting dogs in your lifetime, it's unmatched.
Yeah. That's so cool. In South Dakota, hunting is our shared legacy, something everyone can be a part of. That's why we're focused on making our fields a welcome place for everyone. See how at huntthegreatestsd.com, where you can hear stories from sportswomen and learn what makes South Dakota the world's pheasant capital. While you're there, check out public land maps, hunting blogs, and season information for one unforgettable fall. Learn more at huntthegreatestsd.com. Love that. Well, so did you grow up in Brainerd? Or no, you said you're from North Dakota. So what was that kind of transition like for you growing up?
Pretty slow. We do actually have internet and running water. I grew up in basically between Grand Forks and Devil's Lake area, but Grand Forks is about 90 miles south of the Canadian border. I spent the majority of my time, or my youth, I should say, over in the Devil's Lake area, especially in the summertime on the water there. Mm-hmm. My family farms for the most part, so I had pretty spectacular upbringing at my aunts and uncles and my grandma and grandpas, surrounded with many, many farm animals and, you know, the good lifestyle. There wasn't video games or cell phones, and, you know, you went out and played till dark, and it was what we call the dream life now, I guess. You just made yourself busy and played outside all day.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been reminiscing about those days myself, being back home here, and you know, just all the woods around us that we used to just play in, and it's so much fun being out in the country growing up and having, you know, being able to roam around and not have to worry about strangers and things like that. So you mentioned Devil's Lake, so I have had the amazing opportunity to fish Devil's Lake a few years ago, and that's a pretty unique fishery there. Go ahead and talk.
Correct. Yeah, the whole story there. So when I was a kid, not much younger than you, dear, I can remember the days of Black Tiger Bay, the water level being so low that there's a underwater road where you literally have to stop, pull up your motor, and drag your boat over this old road. That's probably 80 feet underwater.
Wow.
The way that lake has continued to grow, and now it's leveled out, but the complete transformation, not only of the lake itself, but the land around it, mm-hmm. And how quickly it came up. We had a little mini resort, and it got swallowed up, not once, not twice, but 3 times. We had to move things. But now you know, the structures there, it's actually really cool. I mean, to go back and with electronics that we have now and be able to, you know, I can go to a spot and be like, hey, right up there's a barn. And then you go with, you know, like your live imaging or your side imaging, and people are like, oh my gosh, whole tree lines, fence lines, barns. I mean,
yeah.
But the fishery itself is good. It's healthy. You know, it continues to be one of those meccas for walleye, pike, and perch, mm-hmm. and white bass. If you don't mind those, they're heck of fun to fish. So yeah, to see that transformation and the ecotourism continue to grow for that area.
Absolutely. I remember, you know, I went out with a guide when I was there, but he even mentioned, you know, he's out there all the time, but you still got to be very cautious, because things can kind of move around. Like, you might see it top of a tree sticking out in one spot one day, but the next day it might have shifted or, you know, not be where you expect it to be, I guess. So it's interesting, definitely. It was cool too. He was kind of pointing out different structures underneath us and stuff, and it's just like, wow. But,
yeah, I hate to admit it. It's been a long time since I was out there fishing. I actually had the opportunity to go back and fish Devil's Lake this past winter with Steve Ranella from Meat Eater. Mm-hmm. And to be able to go into Black Tiger Bay where I grew up, I mean, right there, and talk about, you know, the lake changing and the fishery changing. It was really surreal for me, like to point over and be like, yeah, so our resort used to be right there. Yeah. He's like, that's like a mile. And I'm like, yeah, there's like a mile of water over top of it.
Wow. Crazy. So you transitioned from North Dakota, and then did you from there move to Minnesota, or what was that transition like?
Yeah. So I actually went to school in Minnesota. I went to the University of Minnesota Crookston.
Okay.
Which is exceptionally sacrilegious for my family because we grew up diehard Sioux fans. So my dad was not real ecstatic when I was like, hey, I'm going to go to the U of M. But so I went to the University of Minnesota Crookston, got my degrees there, and I never went back. I loved Minnesota. I was able to basically work from, the southern portion to the northern portion of Minnesota and multiple entities and divisions with the state for the last 21 years. And I travel all over the place constantly, but I love Minnesota.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I would never give up my childhood growing up in North Dakota, but what Minnesota has here to offer, like, I feel really blessed. And if I want to go visit, I can go visit other places, but I like calling this place home.
Yeah, well, with all the things that you're interested in and like to do, it seems like it's the perfect fit, from hunting to, fishing, soft water to hard water in the winter time. You do all of it in a relatively close proximity too. So, that's awesome. So you've worked for the Minnesota DNR. In a couple different capacities over the years. You want to talk a little bit about that, what you've done with them?
Sure. I started my career in 2001, and I actually started with Medelia Research Center down in southern Minnesota doing deer population modeling. From there, I moved to Parks and Trails. I kind of bounced around the state at different state parks, and then I went to wildlife. And then I went to USDA, and then from USDA, I went to MnDOT for about 8 years, doing different kind of research for them. And then 2013, I had the opportunity to come back to the state of Minnesota DNR as the state depredation biologist. And I was in that capacity for about 6 years. And then I took a promotion to my current position as the Habitat Program Administrator for the Fish and Wildlife Division. Gotcha. Which I've been in this for about 8 years now.
Okay. What kind of stuff do you do with the Habitat program?
It's pretty cool. I'm going to geek out for a second.
Yeah, please do.
Most people are like, you're crazy. But so we have this Lessard Sam's Outdoor Heritage Council money, and it's basically dividends off of the Minnesota State Lottery. And this money gets divvied out to multiple different entities. You put in for it, you're scored, like you're awarded X amount of dollars. And we're lucky enough to keep winning awards every year. And that money makes up the bulk of all the money that we have to do habitat projects across the entire state. So it might be forest, it might be prairie, it might be aquatic, it might be rivers. So I manage those dollars, and then I work with all the fish and wildlife staff to come up and write contract specifications for whatever type of habitat project that we want to do. Then we put those out for bid. We get contractors on site because obviously we don't have enough staff to be able to do everything that we need to do, and it helps promote the local economy too. And we do fantastic habitat projects.
Awesome. Well, very cool. So you're busy with that, but then you've also got a lot of other things that you're involved in. I know you do some radio, TV stuff as well.
Correct. Yeah, when I'm not at the regular career 40 plus hours a week, the last 8 years I've been co-hosting a TV show with Ray Gildahl for PBS. It's called Fishing Tips, and then I don't even know how long it's been, if it's been 6 or 7 years. I've been truly blessed to be able to do a weekly or bi-weekly little outdoor spot on Paul Bunyan Radio with Kev Jackson. So, which is neat. You get it, like with your listeners, to be able to have a strong female voice talk outdoors. It's just like with the television stuff. I think it's important for people to see that, for people to hear that, because it becomes a new social norm, right?
Right.
If you see it on TV, if you hear it on the radio, people become more accepting. 8 years ago, 10 years ago, that didn't happen.
Right.
There was no female voice or face, realistically, especially on the fishing side, out there promoting and encouraging and working with it. So yeah, those are my two true passions, and everybody might seem crazy, but I volunteer my time for both of those.
Wow.
Just for the simple fact, I think the effort and the message is worth it, and it makes up for not getting paid.
Yeah. Well, that is huge. And we talk about this a lot on the podcast. We, kind of follow what the work that the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation is doing in research. And, one of the biggest issues they've found as far as retention for women getting into fishing and the outdoors and boating is that they don't see themselves represented in the industry. And so having a female voice like yours on these shows, that's what it takes to make the difference. Because, somebody hears you on the radio talking about fishing or whatever, and they're like, oh, well, she's someone, she knows what she's talking about. She's authority. She can do this. Maybe I can figure this out too, So that's awesome. And then, so you being up in Brainerd, I'm guessing you've probably rubbed elbows a little bit with Al Lindner over the time, right?
Oh, yes. I actually was spurred to move here because of them.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah, just an off chance point of how small the world is. I was actually doing a teal hunt down in Gardner, Texas, and it was being filmed for a TV show because I was the first female ever allowed in like 100 years at this all-male hunting camp. So, and the camera guy actually worked for Lindner's. But long story short, I was going to be in Brainerd at a training, and he said, hey, jump in the boat, I'll take you fishing. Well, the night before he calls, and he's like, hey, I got a bail. He's like, I got someone coming to pick you up, take you fishing, meet here at this time. So I'm like, oh, okay. I show up in the morning, and I see this SUV and this boat pull up, and out gets Ron Lindner and James Lindner. They literally just came from church in their suits, put their rain suits over top of their suits, and I stood there speechless, just like, I'm going to faint. I'm going to puke. I don't know what I'm going to do. Long story short, we went muskie fishing, and Ron, God bless him, he passed away recently, but we had a great day, and he was really ribbing me on the way down to where we're going to muskie fish. He says, well, don't be too upset, when I catch them all. I'm the muskie king. Well, we go muskie fishing, and I catch 3 muskie, and he catches none. And I don't say a word for 8 hours. I don't know what to say. I'm just like a giant sponge listening to what are to say. Well, we're riding home, and I'm sitting in the back seat, and Mr. Lindner, and Ron goes, which one are you talking to? And I'm like, Ron? And then he's like, yeah. And I'm like, if you're the muskie king, does that mean I'm the muskie queen today since I caught them all? And Jimmy was drinking coffee and literally spit coffee all over the inside of the windshield. He was laughing so hard. We got back to where they dropped me off, and Ron looks at me and he said, kid, he's like, what are you doing the rest of your life? And I was like, what? And he's like, I think we need to talk. And yeah, it led into doing some additional film stuff with those guys. Their family's great. Billy actually helped me break into the bass side of things because I grew up predominantly walleye from Devil's Lake. Mm-hmm. And when I moved here, I was like, I can't meet anybody. And he's like, oh, join a bass league. And I'm like, really? Don't they have walleye league?
Yeah.
But long story short, I joined a bass league and ended up loving the competition, and after a few years moved from the co-side to the pro side, and that was 12 years ago. So
yeah,
it's odd how chance meetings can really shape someone's life.
That's awesome. I love that story. Thank you for sharing that. Al Lindner has been a huge supporter of this podcast and just women and fishing in general. I know Ron, that's also was a passion of his as well. And it's so cool. It's kind of funny. I'm listening to your story and I'm kind of thinking back. So I also went to the University of Minnesota, and I went to the Twin Cities campus though. And when I was trying to decide what I wanted to major in, I was really torn between going into wildlife resources, and they have a great program there at the St. Paul campus, or my other passion was the music industry. And ultimately the music industry won out, and that's what brought me down to Nashville. and I worked in the music industry for 16 years, but then I got tired of sitting behind a desk all the time, and I'm like, this ain't working for me. I need to be outside. So I kind of transitioned my career at that point, got my captain's license, and now I work for Freedom Boat Club, which they actually just opened a Freedom Boat Club in Hastings. So I'm excited for there to be a location here in Minnesota now, but we've got 6 in the Middle Tennessee area, and I kind of work for them, and we just opened 3 in East Tennessee, so definitely stay busy and get out on the water very often with our members and things like that. So it's just been a blast. But also now, so I also just, growing up in Minnesota, that's what I did. I walleye fished all the time, and when I moved down to Nashville, I was like, well, the lake I'm on does not have walleye. There are some pretty decent walleye fisheries around there, all stocked, of course, but I was, the particular lake that I'm on the most does not have walleye. And so I'm like, well, now what am I going to do? I want to fish. I got to figure something out. And so I kind of started getting into bass fishing, and, I guess it's been about probably 7 years now. I've been dabbling in bass fishing, and, couple of years ago started fishing with the women's pro bass tour, so I'm really getting into it now, and it's a lot of fun. I never really got it growing up, but when I caught my first bass topwater, I was like, okay, yeah, I can kind of I can kind of see why people like this.
It gets you every time. What does everybody ask? But what's your favorite way to fish bass? It literally has the worst hookup percentage out of any other technique that you can use, but it doesn't matter, right? Because when they blow out of the water, you can't help but smile.
I know. I mean, even if you miss them, it's just, that's just so exciting. They just come out of nowhere when you least expect it. And it's like, whoa, love it. It's just such a rush. So you fish tournaments as well, right?
Correct. This is going to sound absurd, but I fish about 30 derbies a year.
Wow.
Across multiple species. Predominantly, obviously, I like to bass fish.
Right.
The fall, I will actually transition to more walleye. That's about when we start getting a lot of, our events here. Throughout the season, though, we are blessed. It's a multi-species league. So, and that one intrigues me the most, just for the fact that it uses all of your skills. It's bass, it's walleye, and it's pike, and to be able to go and have to catch all of those species. And some guys, are really good pike anglers or walleye anglers or bass anglers, but you can't win it on one species. You got to have all 3 of those species, if you're going to be in contention. And, so I'm running. I'm running constantly. I've got leagues during the week and then tournaments on the weekends. So,
Wow.
Before COVID, obviously I was traveling kind of all over the place, even up into Canada, for some bigger events up there. But since COVID hit, our world shrunk a little bit. So I'm definitely looking to get back to normal next year.
Yeah.
and head back out on the road.
Cool. Well, that's got to be such a huge challenge to do a tournament, multi-species. I'm doing my best just to kind of focus on bass, but I'm, having fished for pike and walleye in the past, I'm kind of trying to wrap my head around what that would be like to be prepared for all those different scenarios.
I literally should take a picture of the tackle in my boat in the organization. You'd have to have good rod storage, because at a minimum you're looking at least 12 rods,
right?
To be able to span those 3 species plus all the tackle. But it's really good time management too, and understanding on the lake that you're at how those different species interact. Obviously you get it, not every lake fishes the same. In some lakes that you go to, they may have really big pike that are prominent or musky, and that's going to change how you even go about bass fishing or where even to start breaking that down. But to not spend too much time on each species too is the hard part, especially if you get on a really good bass bite where you just got to say, hey, I've got 18 pounds for my 5. like we have to stop and we have to go pike fishing, you know, and to leave a school or, you know, leave a good bite. Then the rest of the day, if you're a bass person like me, I'm like, okay, hurry up and catch 3 pikes so we can go back to bass fishing.
Wow. That's cool. Very, very, very cool. So I want to give you an opportunity. I know you've got some sponsors or you're on pro staff. You want to give a shout out to some of them?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm truly blessed with Lund Boats. They have went above and beyond over the last 15 years to really support me in everything that I do, to the point where the new Bass Pro V that came out probably 5 or 6 years ago, for me to be able to give input and see that prototype boat and help build that boat will forever change my life. Yeah. But to have that a company that big that's based out of Minnesota really become a family, that they're huge. 13 Fishing. I have been with them for probably 9 years, both on the open water and the ice side. And those guys are hands down fantastic. And then Eskimo. So I don't leave. I mean, I've got Hummingbird, I've got Minn Kota. Those are kind of bigger corporations, but these three really are, you know, family orientated. And Eskimo grabbed me probably 4 or 5 years ago. And my biggest complaint for many years is there has not been good quality women's gear that fits us correctly. There's all these little companies out there. There's all these niches. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, I travel to northern Canada, -40 wolf hunting, and I don't have good clothing that fits. I'm little, you know, I'm 5'3" and 120 pounds. I don't want to wear a men's small that's way too big for me. And they said, we will hire female designers. We will hire the best of the best. Work with us and let's create the best women's ice suit on the market. You know, for the avid angler like yourself, all the way down to I might go fishing once or twice and I want to look nice, but still be warm. And I couldn't be more excited. Those guys are phenomenal. Like, they have multiple gals on their pro staff too, and they get it. Like, it's not a marketing niche to say, like, they really are pushing forward to make it an all-inclusive deal. So
very cool. Well, I'll put links to all those companies in the show notes for this episode. Is there anywhere people can go to follow your adventures?
You know what the sad part is? I always say, if I ever slowed down or I could like hire an assistant, right? I have literally so many like major storage units like filled with video and pictures that I just don't have time to post. They can find me on Instagram.
Okay.
Or they can find me on Facebook. Right now my website is down. We're doing a bunch of updating on it.
Gotcha.
But hopefully that will be back up soon, and that's www.bassandgirl.com.
Got it. Okay, cool. Well, I will put links to your Instagram and Facebook as well, so people can kind of follow along. I know the struggle with the social media stuff. It's like, I mean, there's only so many hours in the day, and you know, you want to have these experiences, but not spend half the day just posting about them as well, because you've got other things you got to do. So yeah, if we could all just
at 9:00 at night when I finally sit down, the last thing I want to do is try to spend, you know, an hour on a post. I'm like, no, I'm going to sleep.
Yes, exactly. If we could all just have a full-time social media person just following us all the time, that would be great. Well, awesome. Well, I know we just kind of skimmed the surface on your career, but I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to introduce yourself to the audience, and it was a lot of fun getting to learn a little bit about you, and I enjoyed the Lindner story you shared. And so thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate it. If I'm up in Brainerd next time, I'll have to look you up and we'll have to get together.
Yeah, for sure. You better jump your butt in the boat and I'll take you smallmouth fishing and you for life.
I would love it. That would be awesome. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.